How confident are you? Many of us think that we're either born with or without confidence. But what if I were to tell you that confidence is a skill set and it is one that we all have access to? That is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the beauty that is inside each and every one of us, and how when we tap into our purpose and our level of fulfillment, our confidence grows. Because when we feel more confident, we act more confident, and then everything else starts to come together. I'm Clara Capano, and this is Women Winning Their Way. Oh, welcome to the show. I am so excited for our conversation today. And I am being joined by the wonderful, fantastic, and beautiful Allison Jabo. So, Allison, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes. Well, we are going to have a powerful talk, and we're going to be talking all about confidence because,
Yeah.
people oftentimes think you're either born with it or without it. And you're going to share with us because, as women in business, so many of us struggle with this. We struggle
Yeah.
with that thing called imposter syndrome. We struggle with getting out there, asking the questions. But before we dive into that, just give us sort of that 30,000-foot view, of who
Mhm.
you are.
Yeah. So I am a therapist in the state of New Jersey, and I specialize in anxiety, sex and intimacy and trauma. And then I have sort of like a side hustle where I do private coaching for women. And in all of that work, I have like a very varied career. I worked in hospitals doing crisis counseling. I worked internationally doing crisis counseling. I worked inside of jail systems in solitary confinement. So I've had a pretty eclectic
Mhm.
career. But the thing that I have always found, like my biggest takeaway from all these different kind of experiences, is just really simply what we believe about ourselves is a enormous predictor on our healing, on the behaviors that we participate in, on our patterns. That's it's sort of my soapbox for the last few years is I love working on empowerment and confidence, and I
Mhm.
love doing it particularly with women. Men have their own struggles for sure, but I find that I really connect to women who are really trying to improve upon themselves, but we want them to be improving upon themselves in a really healthy way and not like that pressured, right? Like you said, like imposter syndrome way.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, that's my
Yeah.
bird's eye
So,
view.
let's talk about this a little bit
Mm.
because, everybody struggles with confidence. But since we are talking mostly about, women and women winning their way, why is it that you think so many of us women struggle with feeling confident, strong, and sure of ourselves?
Yeah, I've been spending quite a lot of time really homing in on this question. And, I mean, I don't want to like blame our society, but I will a little, right? Culturally speaking, women, even little girls, right, get quite a different message. And I've been telling this story of late, but my goddaughter just turned 16, but when she was about 8, her mother got called into the office, and the principal and the teacher sat down with her, and they were like, listen, we got to talk about Hayden. She is, raising her hand too often. She is shouting out ideas. She's, like always wanting to take charge of everything. And she's really not like sitting down and letting other people take the
Mm.
lead. And, fine, like we can work on maybe advocacy or like some communication styles. But I remember at that time, my friend saying to me, like, if this were a boy, would I be called into the principal's office? Right? Would I be seeing on his progress report, what a good leader, right? Oh, he's taking initiative. And, that story has stuck out in my head for the last now 8 years. And something that I often think about is just how often we do sort of send the message, even like something really simplistic as like, that could ultimately be really dangerous. Like, hey, if boys are teasing on you, that means they like you, don't say anything back, right? Like we
Right.
coin all of these language around the idea that, we're supposed to really be putting other people first
Mhm.
and making sure that we're not insulting them. We don't want to be too much. Don't want to be too bossy. We don't want to be too bitchy. Certainly, it shows up in motherhood, right? If you think about kind of the most cliche definition of motherhood, it's like, a good mom, they just put their kids first above everything.
No.
And, that's an extreme, right? Like, of course, you should take care of your children's needs, but you should also take care of your own, right?
Right.
So, kind of collectively speaking, I think by the time we're grown-ups, we've collected quite a lot of messaging,
Mhm.
telling us to kind of like pipe down, stay in our lane, put other people first, and we get rewarded for that,
Right.
right? If
It's
I'm the
so
person,
true.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and that's, this idea is, I think we always, again, we think we're too this. Again, like you said, we're too much, we're too loud. And those oftentimes are the same things that people look for in a strong leader.
Hmm.
And we're constantly playing this dance of, having to soften what we do. And we shouldn't have to, again, temper these things. I was just at a conference yesterday, and the ending speaker is the first coach for the NFL that was female. And man, if you look at her, she is just a firecracker, 5'2" and just a force. And it's like, here we are as women celebrating her. But in so many cases, I think she would, shut people down. And it's like, why do we do these things? So, what are some of the things that you have found are, some of the, maybe some of the lessons, or some of the way we as women can learn to still speak up and to learn to build in this self assuredness, so
Yeah.
that when they speak, they're feeling confident, and that they have not gotten a seat at the table, but that they've earned the right to
Mm.
be there just like anybody else, or maybe even forget it. Let's just go create our own table to sit at.
Oh, I love all of that. Yeah, when I was back in human being form in private practice, when I was seeing people in person pre-COVID, now I'm virtual only. I did this like pseudo social experiment where every woman who walked through, I did this to everybody, but every person who walked through the door, I gave a compliment to, and without fail, the men were like, "Thanks." And without fail, the women were like, "Oh my God, no, no, my hair? You like my hair? I didn't even do it today." Right? Like, "Oh, this shirt, it's my sister's. I didn't even wash it." And so if we're kind of looking at like practical ways in which we can start to shift our confidence, right? I truly believe confidence is nothing more than a skill, right?
Mhm.
Everybody has access to it. Everybody can build on it. That's like something tangible, I think, that we can start to do. So when I work with clients, I'm like, listen, I want you to start to notice when people give you a compliment, for instance, say thank you. Like, get comfortable with the idea that like you are allowed to actually like yourself. You're
Mhm.
allowed to think you look beautiful. You're allowed to be proud that you have a cute shirt on. And I think just starting to behaviorally like tap into this feeling, it's super uncomfortable for most women.
Right.
When I do confidence training, I'll say like, okay, we're going to start to say things that you like about yourself, and I want you to start putting it out into the world.
Mhm.
And the most common response I get back is like, but wouldn't that make me egotistical? Right?
That.
Wouldn't that make me showy? And the truth is, confidence is just about you. It's not about other people. I can say, I'm amazing and I'm smart and I'm talented and I'm not kind. And oh my God, so are you.
Mm.
Right? Like, it doesn't, you don't have to take something away. It's not taking something away from someone else by liking yourself.
Yeah.
So I think they're just little tiny practices where we're starting to change our own internal narrative. And then that
Mhm.
starts to kind of flood out, right? It
Yeah.
helps other women for sure,
It
right?
really
Bottom line.
does. And yeah, we are just ingrained with this idea of having to qualify everything. Oh, I got this dress on sale, or oh yeah, I didn't even do my hair today, or whatever it is, rather than just saying thank you. One of my mentors
Mhm.
taught me that, same idea. And going back to what you were saying about confidence, the way that I view it is, when you look good, and when I say look good, that doesn't mean, again, you're beautiful like a supermodel. It's like when you feel like you're like, I'm good. When you look good, you feel good on the inside. And when you feel good, you perform better. You
Oh,
perform at your optimal level. We've all had those days where we put on an outfit and the outfit just didn't feel right. And all day we just don't feel right because we're not in our strength. So
mm,
again, whatever it is, I remember one of the things my father used to tell us, because we're very short people. I'm only 5 feet tall, and he would always say to us, 5'7". And what he meant is, he meant, hold yourself as if you're 5'7".
yeah.
Hold yourself strong, hold your head high, be proud of who you are. Because again,
Mhm.
when you live in that state of, confidence, again, people resonate with it. So I think
Yeah.
that's so great. Can you think of maybe even a success story that you've seen, either for yourself or maybe even somebody that you worked with, and how they went from point A to point B, but also how is this really impacting the end result? How is this by either not being confident or by learning to be more confident? What are the results that we're seeing in our businesses?
Yeah, so I'm going to use myself as the
Okay.
example. So I actually just did a lecture on like how I personally went from insecurity and being an overthinker to really successfully confident. And if I look back to myself 10 years ago, I'm in my 40s now, so like in my 30s, I was hustling. I was working really hard. I had a successful job. Like from the outside, I hit all the markers, right? But
Mhm.
internally, it really was that imposter syndrome, right? I was answering my emails almost like manically. I was always trying to prove my worth. I was really attached to my productivity as a definition for my value in life.
Mhm.
And because that energy was, I say, misaligned, right? It was really, I was doing all the right behaviors, but it was coming from the wrong, like
Right.
inertia, the wrong energy. I was making poor choices, so I didn't really like my job, right? I was not finding value in the things I was doing. I was constantly plagued with anxiety that I had to work harder. And I hit a breakdown, right? Like I had one of those just like cliche burnouts where I
Mhm.
just was in the middle of a corporate meeting and just thought to myself like I can't do this forever. Like what is even my life? And I don't want people to have to get to that point where they're just like have to tear their life apart because it's
Right.
so not working. But that is what happened to me. And when I had to rebuild, I did it with an entirely different energy. And it took a lot of sacrifice. I went back to school in my 30s, had to take out additional loan, I had to take a free internship. But now I like to say I'm aligned, right? I'm listening to my intuition rather than my anxiety more,
Mhm.
right? I'm focusing on my strengths. When I don't do something well, I just recalibrate, right? I'm just like, okay, so that didn't work out. I'm not going to see myself as a failure. I'm just going to see it as a learning opportunity to maybe where do I need more support? What do I need to learn from? Like what do I learn from this? And just all of that mental energy moving from like I'm not good enough to I'm just exploring, I'm figuring this out. I not only am I successful in my business, right? So restarted from the ground up my entire business structure. Um, and have found not only a lot of success like financially, but
Mhm.
I like my job, right? I mean, yeah, of course we have bad days. Everybody, no matter
Sure.
how successful or wonderful you are as an entrepreneur, you have bad days. But I genuinely enjoy what I'm doing. And I
Mhm.
think that's the difference when you're coming from a place of confidence versus that
Mhm.
pressure, that imposter syndrome, that doubt.
Yeah, it's so true. It's again, you just operate at a higher level. Again, the energy, is different. One of the quotes that is resonating with me right now is, do it for the purpose, not the profit. And
Mhm.
I'm kind of pulling that out from
Oh,
what
I
you're
like
saying.
that.
Again,
Writing that
your
down.
journey again led you down. The value is in what you're doing. It's not in your bank account. And
Exactly.
when you focus on the value being in what you're doing, the bank account will also grow, but it's again shifting that focus. So I think
Yes.
that, really great. And I really appreciate what you said about that we all still have bad days because I think it's true. Again, even the best of the best, no day is ever going to be perfect. And again, sometimes when things are not going the right way, just hit the pause button and like you said, recalibrate, bring it in.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about something you brought up when you were, kind of going over your bio. And you talked about that you have your side hustle. You know,
Yeah.
so many of the people that are following the show, have their main career, but so many of them also are building that side hustle.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about, some of the things that you do in just everyday life to keep you productive.
Mm.
So that you can stay in your lane, but maintain a high level of productivity in your, we'll just call it your main job, but then also finding the time to build the side hustle as well.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, on like a basic level, I think self-care is super important. And when I say self-care, I don't mean you've just made time for like a manicure,
Mhm.
right? I fill each and every day with something that I really genuinely enjoy doing. So for instance, today, it's 3 o'clock my time. And I've been on 4 different podcasts today, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
by the end of the day, like this will be a lot of output. So, I had an hour break right before I met you, and I took my dogs to the lake, right? And it just like disconnected for a little while and did something really like enjoyable. And I think if you have, whether it's a main job a side hustle and or both, you really have to make time for fulfillment, right? So it sounds again like when you fill your cup, you have more to work with. It really is true. So, just on a general level, I think always making time for things that are fulfilling and nurturing to ourselves helps all the productivity. And a lot of the times when I'm working with people at the beginning, that's a tough sell for them because they're like, no, I have to fill that time. I don't have time for the fulfillment. And I truly believe the fulfillment is the precursor to maintaining a successful business, right?
Right.
Like if you are just all work and no play, that does lead
Mhm.
to burnout. It does lead to exhaustion. It does lead to poor productivity.
Mhm.
And then I think, like how did I incorporate my side hustle? It's again a little sounds a little cheesy here, but it's like it's passion, right? I'm not just taking any job. I'm taking something that I truly care about. So the work that I'm putting in is still genuine work.
Mhm.
It takes time from me, it takes energy from me, but it is fulfilling. So therefore, you get a return of investment even energetically. And then, like you said, certainly even financially. I think when we're aligned with the right jobs, the right passion projects, the right side hustles, the money follows,
Mhm.
right? So a combination of that, like finding my passion and also making time for fulfillment.
Yeah. And I think, again, I think it ties in with confidence because I think, again, when you're
Mm,
doing something you love, you put everything into it. You work on those skill sets, you learn about it. So, again, you're going to build your confidence. But, there's people out there who really haven't found their fulfillment yet.
yeah,
They're in the job, getting the paycheck, sometimes because they have to, they've
yeah,
got to pay the bills. So, if somebody is sitting there right now and they're, just kind of going through the motions and not feeling very fulfilled, what
yeah,
would you encourage them to do? Because they may not be able to go back to school. They may
yeah,
not have the luxury of time to
yeah,
start a side job. So,
yeah.
what would be some small steps to helping people get more fulfilled?
Yeah, great question. I always think, and it's funny when I tell my story, it always comes with like, I almost minimize the hardship of
Mm.
like something like going back to school. For instance, I lived in New York City and I had like a huge New York City rent and I was sitting on I put all myself through all my school. So I was sitting on $200,000 worth of debt at the time. And it was extremely scary.
Mhm.
And it's confidence to me sort of is self trust, right? So building that mantra or thought process, whatever you want to call it, around I can do difficult things, I think is a really good starting point. And I don't like when I do, whether it's therapy or coaching, I don't think that everyone's answer is just like, well, quit the job then and start all over, right? That's some people's answer, but it certainly doesn't have to be
Mhm.
that. So, I really ask them clients to just like drop in and get really curious of what they need. So if like for instance, I have to keep my job, that is the staple, I'm not moving it, well, maybe we need to create some more boundaries around work, right? Maybe we need to just get a little more explorative on some hobbies that feel fulfilling. I had a coach once ask me, actually, it was during COVID, and she was like, "What do you like to do?" And it was COVID, and I had no idea, right? Like a lot of my jobs dropped away. I was like, I don't, what do I work? That's what I do. And she had encouraged me to like go back to childhood, like remember little me and like, what did you enjoy doing?
Mhm.
And I loved swimming and I loved dancing, right? And she's like, "Great. Both of those things don't really require that much of a financial investment and theoretically don't even necessarily require that much of a time investment. You could just like shake your booty in your living room if you wanted to."
Mhm.
Right. And so I think so much of finding fulfillment and recalibrating, renegotiating our lives is just seeing like what is the need and then getting really creative on how
Mm.
to fulfill it, right? Like not everybody does have the luxury of being able to go away for world
Right.
travel or, but it's like maybe we just find, an interesting documentary on some place
Mhm.
that we want to go, right? Like it doesn't have to be these extreme things. It's finding the little moments of fulfillment that we can actually incorporate into our lives.
Yeah, great. I have another question on confidence. There are so many people now, I think, coming out of the pandemic, several people lost their jobs, so they had to start a new career. Some people are relocating, some people are starting a second career, and they're coming out of this area of being on top. Like, I was the shit in this job,
Mhm.
and now they're starting over.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm not very good. I don't have confidence.
Yeah.
So, how would you, help people who are again starting that second chapter, who are kind of recreating who they are. They're not,
Yeah.
even though they were extremely confident over here, they're now not feeling so confident in their own skin.
Yeah, great question. So, the thing is about confidence, it's not actually, there's no prerequisite for confidence, right? So, it's so often that people are like, yeah, when I get to the top of my career, I'll feel confident. When I lose that weight, I'll feel confident. When I find the partner, I'll feel confident. And the truth is, confidence is actually the prerequisite for success, right? So, we just want to like rework it marginally. And what I would say is, you know, life does not have a timeline and we get thrown curveballs all the damn time, right? So the confidence and the self-trust isn't contingent on where you are in your relationship, in your job, where you live. Those are things outside of yourself, right? The confidence lives in the ability to just say, I'm going to figure it out, right? Like, okay. I mean, and using myself as an example, the career that I gave up, I was a private investigator and I was doing corporate investigations, and I backtracked the whole way to doing clinical work. I started out like I was at a six-figure top job. And when I went back to school and started an internship, I was literally an unpaid intern, right? Like I
Mhm.
went from corporate success to like the bottom of the barrel.
Mhm.
And I just had to remind myself that I'm just on a different path and I'm just starting over, but there's no shame or guilt or value attached to this starting over again. Right? We see as people who like get divorced or break up in relationships. There's a lot of fear around
Mhm.
I had this thing and now I'm starting the whole way over again. And that's just okay. You are exploring something new and it's going to take time, and just really leaning into self-compassion, right? That gentleness, rather than I should be a certain place by this time, because that's all, it just makes us feel like crap and it's all bullshit anyway.
That's so great. Ah, wonderful. Allison, I have just loved this conversation, and
Mhm.
I think you've given us a lot to work with, a lot to think about. And I
Mhm.
appreciate you being so open, even about your own journey, of going through this and all the different iterations you've had, of your life and your journey to success. So
Mhm.
when you're sitting here today,
Mhm.
with everything that you've learned, how do you define success for yourself now?
I feel like I'm about to steal your answer, but I'm going to echo it because I believe it true. I think success is really focusing on a process rather than an outcome. And really quickly, I'm writing a book, and I keep thinking to myself that like whether my book sells, whether I even get it published, really isn't the
Mhm.
definition of the success. It's becoming a writer,
Yeah.
right? So just focusing on the becoming, right? Like that is the successful part.
Yeah, I love that. Again, focus on the journey and yeah, that journey of becoming. That's so great. And, we're going to put all of your information in the show
Mhm.
notes so people can find you. And when your book
Awesome.
gets done, let me know so we can get you back and you can promote
Thank
the
you.
book and we'll help, drive people there because again, your journey is going to inspire so many. So, Allison, thank you again for being here, for all your knowledge, for all your grace, all your confidence in helping to put us in a position to build ours too.
Thank you so much.
Ah, all right, everyone. I don't know about you, but I feel way more confident after talking with her. And so many of the things that she talked about really resonated with me. When I've had several different, stages, coming out of divorces, being a mom, being then an empty nester with my jobs, and these ideas of having to start over. And sometimes it's really hard and it does rock your world and rock your confidence. So, some of the lessons that I took away from this talk is, towards the end of the conversation, one of the things that she said is that success and life doesn't have a timeline. Bam! Isn't that true? Again, we could look at it, but it's not linear. And things are going to happen as things are going to happen. And many times that is the natural process we need to go through. So, again, understanding that, don't try to make it work a certain way. It's going to work out the way that it works out. One of the other things she talked about is this idea of recalibration. When things don't go the way that you want them to go, when things seem like they're going wrong, stop for a moment, rewind, recalibrate. It doesn't mean that everything that you did wrong is a mistake. Let's learn from it. I also loved how she talked about the idea that success and confidence is a skill set and that you're not born with it. It does take time, and some people might be more ingrained with it than others, but oftentimes it's just because of how they were raised and where they came from. But again, it is something that you can learn. So if you want to feel more confident, start with these small things like saying thank you for a compliment. Maybe just setting a stage of, you know what, I'm going to speak up one time in today's meeting and just bring in that safety. Go to a networking group and say, I'm going to meet one new person. All those little steps really start building things up. And then again, she talked about this idea of fulfillment. Find the things that fulfill you. And again, make sure that you are focusing on not just the process, but also the purpose behind what you're doing. And remember, if you're in a place right now where your job or your career is not necessarily bringing you to fulfillment, find other ways to do that. Sometimes it's the money that we get that allows us to do the things that fulfill us. The traveling, having a house that we love, being able to do things with our family and with our loved ones. It could be the flexibility. Maybe the job isn't the best job that you can have right now, but today is not your forever reality. And maybe it gives you the flexibility to do some of those other things. So, always again, focusing and then maybe working towards it. Again, you might be able to create something down the road. So I hope that you found value in today's show. I know that I took so many notes and I'm going to really work on implementing a lot of these things that Allison, gave to us. Remember, you are beautiful, you are perfect, you are worthy of all the things in front of you. So instead of trying to qualify, just say thank you and feel grace and just be grateful for the person that you are and use that to help you level up your own reasons to be confident. So, thank you so much. If you found value in today's show, please make sure that you are sharing these episodes with others so we can help them build their confidence, their skill sets, and ultimately build success on their way. Thank you so much. I'm Clara Capano, and this is Women Winning Their Way.